Welcome to Market Madness, the podcast from GiveMeSport where every day is like deadline day.
Market Madness is the ultimate football podcast for fans who want to go beyond the headlines and into the stories that shape the transfer market. Each episode will feature high-profile guests, breaking news, features, games and challenges.
And as always, you can catch the show and watch it on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Search at GiveMeSport or listen on your podcast app of your choice. Links can be found in the show notes. For more information on any of the stories discussed today, head over to GiveMeSport's website.
Now, as you can see, myself, Olivia Buzaglo and Joel Beya are joined for episode 4, as always, by our resident journalist, Ben Jacobs. Ben, not long to go now until transfer deadline day. It's all getting exciting now. This is the exciting period, isn't it?
Yeah, there's Joel going, every day is like deadline day. Well, it basically is deadline day. And by the way, a little bit of GMS breaking news to tell you about as well. We are going to be live twice on deadline day as well. So 3 shows in the space of 7 days.
Yes, we are very, very excited about that. 2 shows on transfer deadline day. Right, coming up today, it is a very busy show. We'll have plenty of Manchester United and Chelsea transfer chat.
And we'll be joined by Simon Johnson from The Athletic to help us out on the Chelsea side of things.
Yeah, we'll analyse the debut performances of City's new signings, Marmoush and Khusanov. We'll also hear the second part of Ben Jacobs' interview with YouTuber and City fan Ben Black.
And we have a quiz. Myself and Olivia will compete against each other. Ben will be testing our knowledge on real versus fake football teams.
I'm not sure how I feel about this. Probably going to lose. Anyway, Ben catches up with Charlotte FC head coach Dean Smith to chat about the signing of Wilfried Zaha.
And we'll look at some of the possible Saudi transfer moves. Let's get into it. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport.
Right, before we actually get into the main show, if you have been listening, obviously we're on episode 4, we've been setting Ben a live question challenge for each episode of the podcast. Now, today is no different, and today's question, Ben, is, will Evan Ferguson leave Brighton this transfer window? We will check in with you at the end of the show.
I'm on it.
Now, let's look at our top story. Could Garnacho be leaving United this January? We know that any sale of an academy graduate is good for the books, but surely United wouldn't want to let him go to Chelsea. Like, what have you got for us, Ben? Why are they doing this, potentially?
Yeah, Chelsea are opportunistic in the market. Matheus Tel is there as well. I'm sure we'll speak about him a little bit later. But with Alejandro Garnacho, the interesting thing is very different to Marcus Rashford because he's playing in the Manchester United side. But as you rightly say, you've got the football logic of keeping him versus the benefit to the books under PSR. And this is why Manchester United still might be open to a sale. Not just Chelsea that could bid. They haven't yet. You've got Napoli as well if they don't get Karim Adeyemi. And that one at the time of recording has hit a little bit of a roadblock. They might be back in for Garnacho as well. So the simple answer to a complicated story is that Garnacho could still go. It might come down to the final hours of the window. Chelsea could be there, depending on what happens with Tel. Don't discount Napoli. But you know what? If the window shuts and he's still a Manchester United player, I think regardless of the finances, Ruben Amorim will be absolutely delighted.
I'm not sure how I feel about this, to be perfectly honest, Ben. I just think Chelsea have been linked with Alejandro Garnacho, and I understand Man United might need to sell him. But I watched that game against Manchester City, which we'll get onto a little bit later, and just thought there's no way Chelsea are crying out for Alejandro Garnacho.
They are, Liv. I don't understand why. He's not even better than what you currently have.
He's not better than what we currently have.
He's not better than Neto. I think Noni is more of a threat.
So you're agreeing with me?
Yeah, I do agree with you.
Sorry. The way you said it there, Joel, I was like, were you not agreeing with me?
He looked so shocked that he would agree with you for once.
I'm perplexed. I don't understand why they're doing this.
I do think we need a winger, because I look at Madueke, Neto and Sancho, and they are our only options. I don't like Cole Palmer out there. I don't want to play Cole Palmer out there. So I do think we are slightly weak in that area. However, we've already got inconsistent wingers that one of them has been dropped for his attitude problems. I know Garnacho has had some problems with Amorim and being left out of the squad. Decision making isn't always great. It's just not what we need right now. We will continue this Manchester United chat, but I think, Ben, have we got some breaking news?
It's another Manchester United story as well. Patrick Dorgu on his way to Manchester to undergo a medical. Full agreement reached between Lecce and Manchester United. Third time lucky for Manchester United. 2 offers rejected. The final one is just north of 35 million euros. Lecce originally wanted 40, but now there is an agreement. It's in part driven as well by how hard the player was pushing to join Manchester United. And even though a boost as far as Carrington is concerned, Luke Shaw is back with the playing squad. Another left back incoming, providing, of course, he passes the medical. Patrick Dorgu on his way to Manchester to join Manchester United. 35 million euros the fee.
I don't know much about him as a player, but I know obviously the system that Ruben Amorim plays, and having been a Chelsea fan and having watched a team be so good with a 3 at the back and knowing how important those wing backs are, I would argue that in a 3 at the back, your wing backs are your most important players, because they're not just need to help out defensively. But when I think of Marcus Alonso and Victor Moses doing the job they did, Ben Chilwell, Reece James doing the job they did before they both got injured under Tuchel, you have to have like a very, only a few players can play that position. There are not many players out there, and Dorgu is one of those players that will fit in right now to Amorim's system. So I can't really see. I think that's a good signing for them. Do you think, Joel?
Can I just add? I think this is the second time I've agreed with you in one day.
What is going on?
And you're completely right. I think when you look at those wing-back positions, you have to be so fit. You have to be really good positionally. Ain't that right, Ben?
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that Manchester United have been looking for this young profile of left-back. Diego Leon came in earlier in the window, but I think he's more one for the future and will join in the summer. And it takes, I think, and this is my sort of backhanded Arsenal hope, Joel, another suitor out the race for that left-back profile. Because if we just briefly look at your beloved Arsenal, very possible that Zinchenko goes now or the summer. Celtic are trying to get Kieran Tierney now. If it doesn't happen, definitely in the summer. So Arsenal are going to need a left-back as well. And when you look ahead to the summer, Nuno Mendes, Milos Kirkos, available in the market. And it might just mean that Manchester United don't move in the summer and Arsenal have a clear run at one of those names.
Right, enough about Manchester United, enough about Arsenal. Now it's the part of the show we've all been looking forward to. We are joined by Simon Johnson, The Athletic, to talk about my favourite subject. We're going to talk about Chelsea's transfer activity. Simon, it's great to see you. How are you?
I'm loving this window. I feel like I've written a lot without very much happening.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm having worked a lot of January transfer winners. However, it feels like outgoings at Chelsea, Simon, seems a real possibility in this window. Joao Felix and Axel Disasi, the 2 players, and perhaps maybe both to Aston Villa. Can you see them both going there?
It's possible. Can't rule anything out, but obviously to sign both of them on a permanent basis would take a fair amount of cash. Of course, Aston Villa could raise a fair bit of money if they do go on to sell Duran. But put it this way, Wolves have sort of given up. The last I was told, Wolves have sort of given up on their sort of bid to sign Disasi because they've got a strong feeling he's going to Aston Villa, and that's why they're sort of pushing forward for Kevin Danzo. Joao Felix is definitely being talked about at Aston Villa. I think it's something that the Ben's been on top of. And it is a player that of course has not played very much under Maresca, certainly in the Premier League. And if Aston Villa get a huge cash injection and make a good enough bid for Chelsea, and I think if is always the appropriate phrase for Chelsea, because whilst they are open for players leaving, I think as we've seen with the Cesare Casadei sort of prolonged negotiation with Serie A clubs, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go. They've got to sort of really meet the sort of tough asking demands.
And also, I want to bring it back to John Durant, of course. So you said that they might be willing to let him go, but we need to be more definitive with this. He is their starlet future, if you ask me. What is the situation? And why is it that he just doesn't sound settled? He's just signed a new contract, but he's still linked away. What's going on?
Well, you got to remember that Duran is sort of he'll be wanting to play more than he is. He's not a regular starter for Aston Villa. He's been the sort of biggest impact he's made for Aston Villa has been coming off the bench, and he can. I mean, I remember sort of going back to last summer when Chelsea were looking at him and they were seriously considering him at the time. But the way it was put to me is that after sort of doing some sort of more looking into him as a character as much as a player, that Chelsea then decided perhaps not to go through with it. Now you can sort of question whether that was the right decision. Now that the goals for Nicholas Jackson has dried up and Nkunku's future continues to be open to debate, and certainly his impact on the pitch. There's no debate about his impact on the pitch at the moment. He's not really providing any. Whether that was the right call. But again, with Chelsea, all along, it's been kind of the messages I've been receiving is if there's a deal available for the right price, then we might think about doing it. And striker is a position that not just this window, but for the summer is one of the key positions they're looking at. Will they go back for Durant? I mean, the problem is his price is rocketed.
I was going to say, what is it now?
Rocketed since the summer. Well, I mean, there's been all kinds of talk of sort of up to sort of 80 million. I mean, it's crazy money, which would leave Chelsea with a bit of egg on their face if they decide to go through it. But if the clubs are negotiating or having conversations over Joao Felix and Disasi, then you can't rule out a sort of, so what is the Durant situation? But I'm not entirely convinced they're going to be pushing for him over the next few days.
I think
Simon, two questions for you. I know that Liv's got the big one about Nkunku, but I'm going to ask you a more boring one in a minute. But first of all, I just have to confirm because I know the viewers want to know this first. Where are you? Is this some kind of transfer window back cave?
Yeah, this is my glamorous location where where I work. It's basically where I'm locked away.
In the basement of Banadeg Bali.
Yeah, as you can see, it's very high tech. You know, I've got my Athletic branded cup of tea, and I'm good to go for the day. So that's the toughest question I've had all window.
Well, you answered it very well. So the boring kind of question I have surrounds almost international loans in Chelsea, because we hear, for example, about Chukwuemeka could go on loan, Juventus, there's Premier League interest. You reported first that if, for example, Caleb Wiley was recalled, he could even go to Strasbourg. Then there's Washington, who has an opportunity to go to Santos. But again, it's another international loan. And it feels like with some of these outgoings, Chelsea need to be a bit careful, do they not? If too many players have too much interest abroad, they won't necessarily be able to get these kind of agreed in principle deals over the line, especially not with limited time remaining in the window.
Same old, Ben, isn't it? I just feel like we're back to where we were in the summer. But yeah, I mean, Chukwuemeka, I mean, he's had interest. He's got interest in the Premier League as well. One of the clubs is Everton, but there's an issue there because they've already got Armando Broja on loan. They're trying. They've certainly asked the question about cancelling that loan because Broja is out with ankle ligaments, an ankle ligaments injury for a while. Chelsea remain adamant that they're not going to negotiate on that and that Broja's got to stay there, which you can imagine is going to be a source of frustration for Everton because they also like Dewsbury Hall. They also like Ben Chilwell. But yeah, getting back to your point about international loans, this is a problem. You can understand why Chukwuemeka, Chelsea like the thought of Strasbourg, because why is that? Because they can ensure he gets minutes at the club that they've got a fairly strong say in what happens going on there. It just seems ridiculous to me that we're getting down to the last few days and a lot of the players that they couldn't get out last summer, they're in the final week and they're still struggling to get them out. In fact, I was told only the other day that there'd been no fresh calls for Chilwell or Dewsbury Hall, which is a little bit alarming, to say the least. But at the same time, I think there's a bit of frustration. There's a feeling that a lot of clubs are leaving it to the last minute, and I still expect sort of some last minute movement with those two. Certainly some last minute sort of talks and sort of negotiations. But I just hope for their sakes, particularly Chukwuemeka, he's too good to be sort of just twiddling his thumbs at Chelsea, that he gets out and gets some minutes.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think when I initially saw that Chelsea were willing to sell him, it then sort of changed to just a straight loan with no option and obligation. So that makes me think that maybe he does have a future at the club. And, I think he deserves a shot, because up until he got injured at the start of last season, he just looked really good, really bright, really creative. And there was a spark there. Just quickly, before I ask you about Christopher Nkunku, back to the John Duran, I'd give them Felix and Disasi, and we'll have Duran back. Because to me, that is, that's like, not like my dream signing, but like in January, I'm like, if we could sign one player, I think I'd just go and get Duran. I love everything about him. And I know he's had some like attitude, maybe issues before, and he can be a bit of a nutcase at times. I don't know. I like that at Chelsea. I don't think Chelsea have enough of those players. We've got Mark Cucurella, but I think John Duran could add a little something else other than just the goals. Now, someone who's not providing goals, Simon, is Christopher Nkunku. Actually, having said that, he is. I think he still might be our top scorer, but in Conference League, to me, doesn't really count that much. No disrespect to that competition. It just feels like now is the right time for club and player to part. We're doing nothing for his career. He's doing nothing for us in terms of on the pitch. And I think it would just benefit everyone now if he was to leave, which makes me sad, because those glimpses in pre-season we had were very exciting with Nicholas Jackson, but it just hasn't worked out. I don't think he's a number 9, and I just think he clearly doesn't fit in this Enzo Maresca system.
I don't. Harsh. You're being a little bit harsh, I reckon.
Have you watched him every week, Joel? Because if you've watched him every week, I don't think you're saying I'm harsh.
He misses chances, but when you see what he does, but he causes so much havoc. Right.
But he didn't. Coming on against City, we looked like no threat. There was no one running in behind. He's not a number 9. That's my issue. I think if you want to... Okay. I think if he played in his actual position, I think we'd have...
Chelsea looked like they were down to 10 men after he came on Saturday.
But you know what? There's been a few games like that when you guys play against City and certain players disappear. I mean, could we not talk about Cole Palmer disappearing in big games? Like we can go down any route. I think
Cole Palmer's done it consistently for the last season and a half, Joel. And Nkunku's had 1 or 2 moments. And when he's come on and he needs to affect games, you've seen John Duran can do that. That you can players that come on and have an impact. Unfortunately, the way that Chelsea play under Enzo Maresca, he's not going to get in ahead of Cole Palmer. He's clearly not getting in as a 10 ahead of Joao Felix. And as a number 9, I know that's not his role, but that's why he doesn't fit in the system, and I think he's got to go.
You know what, Liv? Just give me all the players you don't want, because my club, Arsenal, clearly need him. So how about that? Any
of the players we've given you before hasn't quite worked out, Joel. So I'm not sure you want to take him.
They weren't as young as the ones you currently have right now.
Well, let me just explain on the Nkunku situation that the biggest obstacle that he faces, I think, is he's letting it known by his body language, nothing else, that he wants to leave and he's ready to leave. And I totally understand why. You got to remember that he's a France international. He wants to be in the France squad, not just for the World Cup qualifiers, but having missed the last World Cup, he's desperate to play in the next one. And that's going to be under threat if he's not playing on a regular basis for his club. Bayern Munich are definitely interested. He's come up in conversations with Manchester United. But the big obstacle is Chelsea don't want to loan him. They want to sell him. If a bid comes in, they'll be prepared to sell him. But their asking price, we're talking 65, 70 million pounds. That is a huge amount of money. Manchester United, for example, don't exactly have that kind of money. That's why we're talking about you're sort of hearing noises about Garnacho and could there be some kind of negotiation there? Bayern Munich, I don't think, are in a position to make that kind of bid right now. They're thinking more with the summer in mind, and all the sort of noises that I'm sort of been getting is a sort of a realistic noise coming out of the Nkunku camp, is that that they're not too optimistic that something's going to happen this month. And the last chat I had in terms of Chelsea was they don't expect him to go, but it's always the caveat. It's the January window. Crazy things can happen in the last few days. I've seen Chelsea sign Torres and Luis in the last 5 minutes of a window. So things can always happen. But as things stand, it doesn't look too promising for Nkunku in terms of a move now. And if that is the case, then it's up to him to sort of try and show to Maresca he can offer a lot more than he did on Saturday when he came on against Man City.
Very quickly, what about Ben Chilwell? You mentioned him earlier on. You said that Everton liked the look of him. What's the situation with him? Because I haven't seen him play in a long time.
Not many people have, to be honest, Joel. He's played 45 minutes this season in a memorable Carabao Cup game against Barrow in September. I think it's a very sad situation. I think Chelsea made a mistake in not adding him to the Conference League squad. Sort of like, because obviously they had to name it before the last window officially closed. But perhaps some forward planning needed there, because it could have given Chilwell some more minutes in what has been a comfortable stroll for Chelsea in the group phase. But yeah, in terms of his situation, it's as I said just about a few minutes ago, there's been no fresh calls for him as yet. Everton like him, but I think they also like Chukwuemeka and Dewsbury Hall, so they can only pick one, and even then, as I said, Broja's loan is going to have to be cancelled. I'm not sort of seeing someone buying him. At best, he'll get a loan, and that would mean Chelsea having to heavily subsidise his wages, one would imagine, because Chilwell is one of the highest paid players at Chelsea. But if you're an interested club, you're going to be looking at his lack of football, as you mentioned, Joel, and his injury record, and sort of think, well, we're not prepared to pay his salary in full. But again, sort of sounding like I'm repeating myself, it is like a similar situation with Chukwuemeka. I just hope he gets out. It's ridiculous that a player that's an England international, 27, 28, a very good player when fit, is in this situation where he's not even close to getting a game of football, because Maresca made it very clear last summer that he's not part of his thinking. He told him to leave to go out and get first team football, and here we are in sort of the last few days of January, and his situation is looking as bad as it did at the end of the last summer window.
It's just even more baffling to me now that we've let Vega go out on loan, and now our only available left back is Marc Cucurella, and if he gets injured, then what? You've got Gusto playing, and then you've got Reece James's injury record. It just is baffling to me. Anyway, Simon, just quickly, there's been two names flying around this transfer window. Out of Tell and Garnacho, who are Chelsea more interested in, do you think?
This could come back to bite me, but I'm getting the feeling that it's Garnacho. Tell. I think they've asked about, and they've certainly had conversations about, but then there was sort of a bit like the sort of wording that I heard about Duran last summer, that the sort of like that they've looked at it a bit closer, and perhaps they're oohing and ahhing about it. But he would be cheaper than Garnacho, you have to say. And there is that sort of Nkunku sort of situation which might help. Garnacho, they are wanting a left-sided winger, as has been well documented, because of the concerns of losing Mudryk if his B sample turns up positive for that banned substance. We're still waiting for that. But yeah, that would be my answer. That Garnacho at the moment, but neither. It seems like both is sort of interest at the moment, rather than sort of yes, we're going to put all our chips in and sign this guy. You also have to remember that Chelsea are not just thinking this window; they're already thinking of the summer window. So that they'll be weighing up sort of like, is a player coming in now the one we want sort of going forward? It's not just about the next sort of 4 months. It's about the next few years. So Chelsea aren't going to do anything out of a sort of a panic. It is going to be sort of, no, this is the player we want for several years, not just for a quick fix.
And Simon, just finally, I don't dare say briefly because it's again a
I can't
boring
do that.
financial or logistical or legal related question from me. You're never going to come back on and answer my questions. You're always going to return and be like, I'm only answering Liv and Joel's because they're football questions. I want to know, last but not least, about PSR and how much of Chelsea's movement or lack thereof, if it transpires that way, maybe down to PSR, or do you sense that 24-25, much like the current financial cycle, Chelsea feel that they are PSR compliant?
All the noises I've sort of heard and been told for a long time is that Chelsea are very sort of confident in their position, in their financial position, and that's going forward. Now you can only sort of take their word for that. Of course, we've had some interesting sort of ways of coping with PSR in the past, like selling hotels to themselves, essentially. But yeah, all the noises are there. They're fine. But I mean, don't forget, last January they didn't make any signings either. So Chelsea are much is said about how much they spend, and understandably so, because they have spent well over $1 billion on players. But not much is said about how much they've generated from sales, which is a significant amount of money as well. And a lot of that, somewhat controversially at times, quite a bit of it has been raised by selling of homegrown talent, which counts as straight profit, unlike if you sell a sort of a trying to think of a better phrase for it, but sort of like
someone not from your academy. But Simon,
yeah,
I'm
so
annoyed you've said that, because now Liv is going to start using that in arguments to defend her team. But go on, carry on.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like it. No.
Well, I mean, look, no club has been busier ins and outs than Chelsea. Trust me, don't I know it? Than Chelsea, they certainly keep you busy. And as the January window has shown, that there is a lot about outgoings as much as incomings. But yeah, no, I think financially, I think all we can say is that I think they're fine at the moment. We're still waiting for their football, their financial accounts to be released. But of course, it was announced that all clubs have passed PSR for the last financial year. So Chelsea obviously are one of those. But they're not going to just sort of spend. Their business model is about sales as well, and they definitely have sort of a lot of income that they can generate from these guys if they can get them off the books. The issue is that it does seem that a lot of the players are just for loan. So going back to Liv's point about Chukwuemeka, and I mean, he's got a release clause of £40 million. Now, who's going to pay that realistically, given the lack of football he's had over the last 2 seasons for one reason or another? That's why it's more likely he's going to go out on loan. Hopefully he gets the minutes, and then suddenly people see what he can do on the pitch and go, actually, I remember that guy is quite good. I am willing to pay. I still don't think anyone will pay 40 million, but I can still see someone sort of committing a fair amount of sums for him, and that goes straight into the books and helps them fund for the next guy.
Well, I want to say thank you, Simon, for that. That was absolutely brilliant. Please make sure to follow Simon on X at @SJohnsonSport for more updates, or across the athletics platforms. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport. But before we move on, I know there is some breaking news. Please, Ben, can you talk to us?
Wolves are in talks with Dynamo Kiev for a permanent move for the Ukraine international and defensive midfielder Volodymyr Brazko, who's won almost 10 caps for his country. Wolves looking to strengthen in the centre of the park with a view potentially to Mario Lemina going off maybe Saudi Arabia and Al Shabab, although that deal is taking quite a while to be finalised, but Lemina certainly wants the move. And I can also reveal that Besiktas are pushing for Renildo this window. Now, the player who's at Atletico Madrid is fully focused on the Champions League game at Salzburg, but an exit in the next few days is possible. Besiktas are the front runners for his signature.
We've already covered Man United and Chelsea. Simon Johnson from The Athletic helped us out with that. And of course, next up, we have a quiz. Later on in the show, we'll also hear part 2 of Ben's chat with YouTuber and City fan Ben Black. Ben Jacobs also sits down with Charlotte FC head coach Dean Smith, and we'll look at some players who may be on their way to Saudi. But Ben, let's start the quiz. What have you got for us, please?
Yes, in addition to breaking news, I am told I must be quizmaster as well. Of course, I am doubling my rate as a consequence, just flagging that to the Market Madness team. But no, this is a little quiz, and it's actually inspired, Olivia, by your surprise news a couple of weeks ago. I remember that you were talking about the charity work that the Strongest FC do in Bolivia. And I just thought, Strongest FC, that name cannot be real. So then I went on Google and I realized that Bolivia has Always Ready and Blooming FC. So then producer Nick called me the other night and he said, okay, we're going to take some real and fake football team names and I'm going to put 5 of them to you. And all you've got to do is say true or false. Are they real team names or are they fake? But there is a slight twist. If in your answer you can say real in the case of them being genuine, and you can name the country, then you get a bonus point.
I'm going to be so bad at this. And
the other
You've got to try though, right? You've got to try.
Guessing game. 50-50 chance. 50-50 chance. I will get them all wrong.
Before we get going, is that a bit like rock, paper, scissors, I suppose. You both just have to shout it out at the same time. So you're each answering the same question. Your answer may be the same, but you got to give it instantly. You can't be waiting for the other one.
Are we going to have like a, Ben, I think you've got to go a 3, 2, 1 go. Because otherwise me and Joel aren't going to know. I think we've got to, I think that's how we should do it. Ben, you take full charge and we'll follow your lead.
This is why you're the presenter and I'm not, because you understand how to execute these shows, whereas I just would have waited. There would have been a horrible silence. You'd have looked at each other and one of you would have cheated off the other one, I am sure. So I think we can get underway. Here we go. Question number 1. FC Santa Claus. 3, 2, 1.
Fake.
Real.
And the answer is real.
I did think this. I've got no idea. Are they Norwegian or something?
No,
no way.
I've definitely heard of them before. Like that. I've definitely heard Santa in the name. So I mean, Claus would have just been. But
you're not far off though in terms of territory. Do you know what? I know I didn't say this in the rules, but Joel, you got it wrong. So Olivia's 1-0 up. I'm going to give you a free hit guess at the country to make it 1-1.
Well,
because you've given him a clue now.
It's going to be one of the Nordic countries then, the way you made it sound. So
I'm not
I say
happy about
Denmark.
This.
Incorrect. They are a Finnish football team based near the Arctic Circle. FC Santa Claus from Finland. So 1-0 to Liv. Question number 2. Your team name is Galaxy Dreamers FC in 3, 2, 1.
Real.
All
right, 5 hours later, Joel.
You had like an open goal to equalise, and the answer is fake.
All right.
So it stays at 1-0 to Liv. Question number 3 of 5. The team name is no FC, no sports club, nothing after this name, just miscellaneous. 3, 2, 1.
Fake.
Joel, man, come on, you've got to be taking more risk in all of this. It is a real club. But once again, and you can both shout out, first one can have a guess, but you can both have an opportunity here to get a point, even though you were wrong with miscellaneous. It's a real team. Where do you think it's based?
Italy.
Italy?
Poland.
I
don't know.
I'm just laughing that Joel might think Serie A, Serie B has a random Italian team called Miscellaneous.
Where
They're
are they
in
from?
Botswana.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
I was going to get that one.
That was your second
Yeah,
choice.
make him easy for us, Ben. Why don't you?
Yeah.
So neither of you are doing particularly well at this stage. It's still 1-0 to live. We've got 2 questions to go. Question number 4, Banana Kickers FC in 3, 2, 1.
Fake.
Congratulations. That is a fake team name. There is a
Okay.
Kickers FC, but Banana is
So
just
should we just have a
producer.
guess at where they're from?
No guess, because
Oh.
it's a completely fictional team. So
Oh,
unfortunately,
sorry.
no
Sorry, we
opportunity
guessed
there.
fake, didn't we? That's stupid.
Basically, producer Nick took
Gosh.
Kickers FC, was having a banana for breakfast, added the word banana, and we move on. So your
I'm
last
all over the
question.
shop here. I'm all over the shop.
No, you're doing okay. You're 2-1 up.
Oh, yeah. 2-1 up.
So there's pressure on Joel here. But remember, if the next answer is real, you have an opportunity to also guess the team names. There's 2 points at stake if it's real, 1 point if it's fake, which means that all Joel could potentially do is tie in that scenario. Your final team is Chicken in FC in 3, 2, 1.
Real.
I said it first.
The answer is real. So it is now 3-2 to live, but there's an opportunity for each of you to have a guess where the place is. And for intrigue, I'm going to ask Joel first, just in case he can make it 3-2. I know that's a bit unfair, Liv, but
Yeah, whatever.
we might get to the tiebreaker in this case. Joel, where do you think this team is from? Chicken in FC.
The States. It has to be.
Liv, where do you think this team is from?
Yeah, I would have said America, but I feel like I can't say America because he said America. So I'm going to go, oh God, I don't know. I don't know.
Any danger?
You nick-
Any
What?
danger?
I can't even think
Moving.
anywhere I'd want to
bit.
pick. I want to pick America, but I can't. Is it America?
It isn't America,
Oh, fine.
unfortunately. It is Zimbabwe. So despite that long, dramatic silence whilst Liv tried to think of another country on the planet other than America, Liv is the winner, 3-2.
Yes. Love it.
Just
And
about.
That's
I mean,
it. I think we'll do that again at some point.
You were due a win because you lost the last one. So
Yeah,
I
true.
guess
It's
it's 1
1-1
all
now.
overall.
I like that game. We should do that more often.
I think we will.
Because you won.
Yeah. No, just quite funny, isn't it?
It's all right. It's a bit difficult guessing the countries. but
Yeah.
There was
it's
one
all
I
right.
was seeing the other, which we might flip it to, which was like, is it a footballer or is it a Swiss cheese? So I may come back with that one
That
this
sounds
time
good.
next
Sounds
week,
good.
but probably not on deadline day. I think people probably prefer to hear about signings than Swiss cheese,
Yeah.
but we shall see.
Guys, thank you very much for that game, but I have to move it on and talk a little bit about City. Now, Ben, how do you think the new signings of Marmoush and Khusanov got on their debuts for City against Chelsea at the weekend? And look, sorry about the result, Liv. Not really sorry, but I did kind of feel sorry for one of the new City signings as well. But Ben,
Oh.
you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Khusanov had just about the worst start to a Premier League tenure that you can get, giving away the opening goal inside a couple of minutes, picking up a yellow card. He recovered well, and in fairness, Pep Guardiola shielded him afterwards and sort of said, if anything, he was chucked in too early out of necessity, but that's a little bit of a learning curve for him. At the other extreme, I thought Omar Marmoush was absolutely Chelsea's bane and got a disallowed goal, was lively, was versatile, got into all of the pockets, showed that he can play in that kind of Julian Alvarez multi-role of both Kevin De Bruyne, deeper playmaker, and also up there supporting Erling Haaland as well, and maybe at times even deputizing for him. So City have suddenly got depth. I still think that they could be in the market for a midfielder. I know we hear a lot of reports as well about Cambiasso coming in. It's true that City like him, maybe one for the summer, but City are going to be very busy right up until deadline day. Douglas Luiz returning to Manchester City, not ruled out of the question, but they want a loan, whereas Juventus at the moment are saying it's a £45 million signing. So not an easy one, but City alert to opportunities. And yeah, I thought Marmoush, real deal in form, and Khusanov is going to take a great learning from his shaky start, and at least the error in the end didn't cost him because he was on the winning side.
Yeah, I mean, you can see there on the right-hand side of your screen, City have now occupying that 4th spot, and I think they'll probably get that, and I think they'll probably get it quite comfortably between now and the end of the season, to be perfectly honest. I'm still not sure who are the other 3 other than Liverpool and Arsenal that are going to make up the top 4. I'm still unsure about Forest, but what annoyed me about that game was, I know, like, Khusanov, bless him, like, it was a pretty disastrous start, but where are those Chelsea players that then didn't put any pressure on him for the rest of that game? You should have gone in for the kill. You should have targeted him every single time. Jackson's there consoling him. Oh, sorry, what? Jackson's there, like, stroking his stomach, being like, "That's okay, mate." No, I don't want to see that. This is what I was talking about with John Duran earlier. Do you really think John Duran is going to be going up to him and shaking his shirt, going, "It's all right, mate"? No, John Duran's going to be on him every single second of that game, ensuring that he makes mistake after mistake after mistake. And I didn't think City needed to get out of second gear to beat us, to be perfectly honest.
Yes. Yeah, Liv.
Sorry for the rant.
For the third time today, you are right again, in my opinion, which is what counts the most. Oh my goodness. Honestly, I thought the same thing. Target them, play the ball there, put him under pressure every single time. You know, do you think that shows a bit of tactical lack of awareness by Maresca? Because Jose, you know what Jose would do.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I also think it's down to the player as well to know that the players that are around, like, not even just Jackson, but obviously Jackson is the main player that you would think, but we didn't target him at all. And no one, I'd have put bloody Cole Palmer on him, is what I'd have done. I'd have put Cole Palmer on him and gone, "You deal with that. Give me the ball and put me up against him." And I think it just showed an inexperience from this whole team that we know is there quite clearly to see. Perhaps an inexperience on Maresca's side as well, but we know again that's
maybe they're following plans, Liv. Maybe they're following plans. This is what I'm saying. Maybe they're following the game plan that's been told.
I mean, you don't know.
I
but
agree
I think
with you, though. But,
yeah, I think as for City, I think they were there for the taking against PSG. That's how you play against Man City. And I just thought Chelsea played into their hands. Again, when Jackson came off, didn't look a threat. Too easy, going man for man, playing a high line. Your goalkeeper making the mistakes he is. And I just thought it feels like now we might have kickstarted City's season. But it is what it is. And I expect, they've had a good transfer window as well, City. They've targeted positions that they needed to strengthen. I still think the midfield is a big one, but it wouldn't maybe surprise me if they waited until the summer for that, because obviously it is basically to replace Rodri, and that is not easy to do. For more info on any of the stories discussed today, you can head over to GiveMeSport's website. Now, sticking with Manchester City, because we're going to hear the second part of Ben Jacobs' interview with YouTuber and City fan Ben Black. Now, if you missed part 1 last week, then you know what to do. Go and have a listen to that. Ben starts this chat by telling us who his favourite Manchester City player is. Let's take a look.
I've always said Aguero is the man. I absolutely love him. And then Kevin De Bruyne, just because of how insanely good he is. I think on his day, in his prime, untouchable. Then Phil Foden as well, just because he's like a City boy. So they're like my top 3 that I'll always go to. But if you play for Man City, I absolutely love you.
And you've now met many of these players in a professional capacity. Have you ever been starstruck, or what's it kind of like rubbing shoulders with stars that you watched growing up as a fan?
So the first ever player that I met was Steven Gerrard, actually, and I remember being very starstruck. I mean, it's the first ever player I spoke to face to face. I think I was about probably 15 at the time, 15, 16. I was very oh my goodness, Steven Gerrard. And then so that was definitely a starstruck moment. And then Ronaldo as well is the other one, where the first time I met Ronaldo, I remember the heart goes a little bit. But they're the 2 times where I genuinely remember being very wow, what is going on right now? This is insane. I think the only other player that I could have that with would be Messi, who I've not met yet. But fingers crossed, we want to make it happen if anyone's watching.
Yeah, the Club World Cup could be an opportunity.
Could be.
Let's hope so. Let's make it happen here on the Market Madness podcast. So the irony sort of there is that You got a little bit starstruck by Gerrard, Liverpool. You got a little bit starstruck by Cristiano Ronaldo, Manchester United legend. Not necessarily the City ones, though.
Well, the thing with the City ones, because the first time I met a City player, I'd actually already met a lot of like other players, so it'd be kind of become a bit more normalized of like, and it's in like also like a work setting. So when I first started, when I met De Bruyne, for example, I was directing a shoot that like was about him, so I kind of had to be way more professional, not really like come across like a fan like that because we actually had like an asset to make. So to be fair, De Bruyne, I remember I had someone who I worked with, and De Bruyne walked in the room and he did kick me under the table like, De Bruyne is coming. I was like, that is pretty cool. But then it was all right, work. That's the main thing.
You're far too humble to admit this, I know. But when you're dealing with these big name footballers or in front of live audience, you're kind of the star billing because you've got such a huge global audience. How do you handle that attention?
No, there's definitely a difference. Like, I think being a footballer is a next level. That's like something else. I have a lot of people watching the videos. Like if I go to a game, people will come up, show a lot of love, which is like really nice. I enjoy it. If you're taking time out of your day to watch like one of my videos, I appreciate that massively. And should like reciprocate that. Like I'll take my time out my day, ask you about where are you from, what team do you support? If I'm at a game, ask them their thoughts about the game and stuff like that. That's the way that I try and think about it.
And let's speak about Pep Guardiola as well. He recently signed a new deal at Manchester City. Is that somebody that you've met?
I've never met Pep, but he's the type of guy I would love to go and have a meal with. He is like he's so dedicated. Like there's a lot of qualities to like about that man. I'm very happy that he's done the contract extension. I think this is his legacy team. He did like Barca, Bayern. Everyone thought 3 years at Man City, he's gone. I think he's realized this is where I make my statement in football. And he's done that. He turned the Premier League. He did something in the Premier League no one thought could happen, winning it so many times like that.
That's good stuff. Welcome back. But hang on a minute. We have to go straight onto breaking news.
Al Ahly have made a fresh approach for Marcus Rashford, even though the player's already told Saudi deal makers he doesn't want to go. And they're trying to take advantage of the fact that this Rashford to Barcelona deal is likely to go down to the final days or even hours of the window because Barca have to make it financially feasible. Now, at this stage, the player's position has not changed. He doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. But Barcelona is a very complicated move. It is Rashford's preference. Dortmund could return as well and offer Manchester United a similar kind of formula to the one that saw Jadon Sancho go on loan to Dortmund before, of course, he went to Chelsea. And they are in a strong position, Dortmund, if they want to proceed to get a green light from Manchester United. Barcelona do not have that green light from Manchester United in club-to-club negotiations yet, but they do have the green light from Marcus Rashford. So Rashford is waiting for Barcelona. We should point out that he could just stay at Manchester United. And I don't think it's the same situation as Sancho and Ten Hag, because Rashford and Amorim would probably find a way to move forwards if he's a Manchester United player after February the 3rd. But Al Ahly are being opportunistic. They now have put a fresh proposal on the table, despite a rejection earlier in the window, just in case Rashford has changed his mind. So Barcelona is where the player wants to go to. Al Ahly being opportunistic, and we shouldn't rule out Rashford just staying at Manchester United because it's complicated to get Rashford over to Spain. But Saudi, and I know we're going to talk about them later, are making big moves in the final days of this window.
Yes, they are. Right. Thanks for that, Ben. Remember, for more info on anything we've discussed here on Market Madness, you can head to givemesport.com. There's so much more over there as well. Right. Let's move on, because our very own Ben caught up with Charlotte FC head coach Dean Smith to chat about his new signing, Wilfried Zaha. Let's have a look.
Dean, congratulations on the signing of Wilfried Zaha. Tell me first how this deal came about.
Really pleased that we've managed to get the deal over the line. A lot of hard work has gone into that from both sides, our side and Wilf's side. And, Zoran's done brilliant to get this over the line. I'm really looking forward to, been working with him for the last few days now. And, I think it's an excellent addition for us, first of all, as a club. But you can tell that the locker room itself has just, taken notice a little bit that, we've signed a big player.
Just talk a little bit about how Zaha fits into your team in terms of his playing attributes.
First and foremost, quality. I think we've seen over the years what he can do, how he can do it, whether it's been playing in the Premier League, at Galatasaray in his first year, in the AFCON for the Ivory Coast or the World Cup. He's got a repertoire of skills. He's strong mentally, but he's got a really good technique and understands the game, and he can score and he can create and he can win lots and lots of penalties as well.
Did Zaha need some convincing to move to MLS? What was the pitch process like, and how involved were you in it?
I never like to bring players in unless I've met them or spoken to them. And, he was in London at the time. I went to speak to him. We had a good chat. I mean, my teams have played against his teams before, and, he's always one that you earmarked that could be a game changer for Palace at the time. I wanted to get a feel of, where his hunger was and what he wanted to do. And likewise, he'll have been getting a feel from me about what I wanted from him, the standard it's going to be, and how he would fit in. And I think we both left that meeting in London really pleased with what we'd experienced and what we'd spoken about.
Give me a bit of insight as to what kind of headspace he's in, because it has been a very difficult series of moves for him to Galatasaray and to Lyon as well.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good first season at Galatasaray. I think he scored 10 and created 8. And did they not win the league the first year? I think they did. And then he wasn't in the team so much. He's just had a pretty unsuccessful spell, I think, at Lyon. And he's coming here to enjoy his football. And what I've seen from him in the training sessions so far is somebody who wants to, enjoy his football, but be successful at it as well. He's got a winning mentality. That's what we partially why we wanted to bring him in as well as his quality. And he will certainly push the ceiling of training, push the standards of training, and the expectations of what he wants from his teammates as well. And it helps when it's not just one or two voices. Ashley Westwood, Adil Malanda, there's other voices now who are going to push the standard of training.
Does this feel like another flagship MLS window across the board? Of course, when Messi arrives, that's one example, but you've landed Zaha. Atlanta might be about to break the MLS record with the signing of Latte Lath. Are you noticing a higher caliber of players across the board attracted to MLS?
Yes, I am. And, they're not. It's not what everybody probably in the UK would see as a retirement league. If Atlanta are going to make signings like that for younger players, it just shows you how much the MLS has come on. I believe the league has come on leaps and bounds over a short period of time, and I think it will continue to grow now. We've got the Club World Championship here this year. We've got the World Cup here the following year. I think the viewing figures of watching soccer over here, football in Europe, is getting bigger and bigger, and that can only help to attract better players.
And the last time we spoke over the summer, you let slip that you texted Jamie Vardy to see if he'd be interested in a move to the MLS. Have you dropped him another text with a view to 2025?
No, I dropped him a couple of texts to congratulate him on keeping scoring in the Premier League. But, I hope they turn their run of results around at the moment at Leicester.
And just finally, can I ask you about Jack Grealish and what you think he needs to do to reignite his Manchester City career?
I think that's a conversation for Jack and Pep Guardiola to have rather than myself. But I watched the Salford game the other week in the FA Cup, and he looked like he had a smile on his face. So he hasn't played as much as he'd like to this season. He's had a few niggling injuries. I caught up with him when he was over in the US in the summer, and him and Pep had a really good relationship. And Jack was working extremely hard to make sure he remains fit this season.
So Wilfried Zaha obviously signing with Charlotte FC, and Ben, that's not the only former Premier League player, because we've got a current Premier League player, Miguel Almiron. He's heading over to the MLS too, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a $10 million plus add-ons fee, as myself and GMS's Tom Bogart reported. He's off to Atlanta United, returning therefore, and he won the MLS Cup when he was with them. So this is a deal that's been agreed in principle between the clubs for quite some time. Almiron said an emotional goodbye. That one will be official in the next few days. And keep an eye on Atlanta United as well, because they're still chasing Emil Lath. That deal is not dead, but there's some final complications, and the player picked up an injury as well. So in addition, because that deal is not 100% happening yet, Atlanta United have also submitted a bid for around $18 million for the Benfica forward Arthur Cabral, and talks there are ongoing as well. So Atlanta are getting Almiron and likely a striker as well in the next few days.
Perfect. Right, let's move on to the final part of the show then. And Ben, you sort of teased it earlier. Let's chat Saudi. And there is only one place to start, isn't there? And that is that Neymar has left Al Hilal for his boyhood club, Santos. Now, this is just to make producer Nick happy. Now, Neymar wasn't actually Santos's number one choice. Of course, if you want a striker better than Neymar, you'd go to Sheffield Wednesday. Wouldn't you, Ben? Please explain.
You would. So, effectively, Josh Windass was the number one target. And I know that sounds slightly odd, but the manager of Santos is Pedro Caixinha, who was at Rangers and had Windass there. So about 2 weeks ago, before it was apparent that Neymar could terminate his contract at Al Hilal, they tried for Josh Windass. Sheffield Wednesday said no. So they went, all right, we'll go and sign Neymar. Neymar has terminated his contract with Al Hilal. And as a consequence, he's able to sign as a free agent now for Santos. Only 6 months, which means that he might be back in Europe over the summer. There was supposedly an initial option to extend by a year, but the Neymar camp said, no, let's do straight 6 months contract. And then in the summer, he'll reassess and very likely come back to Europe. And obviously from Al Hilal's point of view, they free up budget. I'm told that Neymar was on about 150 million euros a season. There was roughly 90 million owed to him to see out the contract. And the parties have kind of split that down the middle. So Neymar's got 45 million euros paid to him to leave. And Al Hilal save that number, and they can maybe put that towards Mo Salah if he doesn't end up extending at Liverpool.
Okay, cool. So now, is it a guarantee now? Do you reckon that Mo Salah goes to Saudi, or what's your thoughts?
No, because Saudi haven't bid yet, Joel. It's very interesting. They bid once on behalf of Al Ittihad. Liverpool said they wouldn't accept a 150 million offer. And as a consequence, Saudi dealmakers walked away. So they've done all the legwork. The financials are in place for Salah. If they want Salah, he's well aware of what the project is, what the money is, what the side perks are. So they don't really need to negotiate with Salah. It's just about respecting his negotiation with Liverpool and timing an approach right, because you're not going to stand a chance of getting Salah if you're pushing him when the player's saying, let me just finish talking to Liverpool first. So Saudi are prepared to bid for Salah. They want him in time for the Club World Cup, but they're not going to actually put a new formal offer in front of Salah unless they get any encouragement, which is why Liverpool still feel calm about the situation. But I would say he's the top target for Al Hilal.
And who else could be heading to the Middle East, Ben? Because I heard a big name that we were talking about earlier in this podcast. In John Duran may has now been linked over to Saudi Arabia. And there's a few other names as well, isn't there?
Yeah, this is a massive story. John Duran could be joining Al Nassr, but so could Victor Boniface. And we saw this with Victor Osimhen and Ivan Toney, where two concurrent deals were almost lined up. And then Al Ahly had to pick one and they signed Toney. So the situation at the time we are recording, and I think it will change during the day, is Victor Boniface, full verbal agreement and personal terms, 60 million euros. Leverkusen think he's going. The players said some goodbyes, but none of the paperwork has been signed. And that's because Al Nassr have a delegation in London looking for John Duran, who has agreed personal terms. And I'm told he really wants the move to Saudi Arabia. No fee at the time of recording agreed with Villa yet, but it's likely they'll come to an agreement around about the 65, 70 million fixed fee mark, plus add-ons taking it somewhere in the region of 90 million, which is in and around Villa's asking price. So if Villa accept, then suddenly Al Nassr have to choose. Do they want Duran? Do they want Boniface? Is one disappointed? Is one reallocated to another club? It's going to be a crazy 24 hours. But Duran or Boniface, one of them is going to Saudi Arabia in the next 24 to 48 hours. And then other names, Saeed Benrahma to Neom FC could become a possibility. Mario Lemina to Al Shabab. He wants the move. No agreement yet with Wolves. Shabab asked for him on a free transfer. Wolves want 6 million euros. So Saudi are going to be busy in the last 24 hours to 48 hours of the market. And if they can get some of the deals done now instead of early next week, they would ideally like to do so, which is why they're pushing hard for some of these Premier League stars that I've just mentioned.
It's time to finish the show with Ben's question challenge. To remind the listeners and viewers, we asked Ben to find out, will Evan Ferguson leave Brighton this window? Ben?
Yeah, the answer is yes. And Brighton prefer a loan to a permanent sale, which makes it very difficult for Arsenal. Arsenal can't loan the player because they've got Neto and Raheem Sterling, the maximum 2 Premier League loans, and they can't send either of those back. There's no recall clause active as it stands. So then you have Leverkusen, who I'm told are actually the front runners. It's looking more likely that Evan Ferguson might go abroad. You've got Everton, but the player doesn't favour that move. And you've got West Ham United and Bournemouth. And West Ham made an approach formally for Evan Ferguson 2 weeks ago. And Brighton said, we'll let you know in the last week or so of the window. They've now done that and said a loan might be possible. So I think West Ham will move, but they might want that confidence to feel that an option to buy may be included, whereas Leverkusen are more prepared to just do a straight loan. And then we shouldn't discount Bournemouth and a straight loan because Evan Nielsen and Enes Unal are both injured. So they're still looking for goals as well. So right now, Leverkusen are pushing. West Ham would like the player. They've got a few other options as well, including Andre Silva, but they want an option to buy, ideally, rather than a straight loan. And then Bournemouth and Everton, the other two suitors. But I think Everton are the least likely, and Bournemouth probably will be in the conversation because they need depth between now and the end of the season. So I do expect Evan Ferguson to go on loan between now and the end of the winter window.
And if he goes to Bournemouth, he wouldn't even have to move house, would he? Right. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We'll catch you next week when we'll be live for not 1, but 2 transfer deadline day special episodes. Monday, the 3rd of Feb at midday UK time and 5:30 p.m. UK time as well. As usual, we'll be talking about the biggest football transfer stories with top guests. I'm sure there will be so much to talk about on transfer deadline day, as there usually is. You can watch us live on YouTube, X, and Facebook. All you have to do is search at GiveMeSport, or you can listen on your podcast app of choice. The links are in the description. For more info on any of the stories we've discussed and so much more, you can head to GiveMeSport.com. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.